Hello, and welcome to another Elleston Liddell Radio Mystery. Once again, interesting theater whisks you back to the year 1908, at the height of Manitoba's first golden age, a time when people from around the world flocked to Winnipeg to experience what many regarded as a miracle. Somehow, a modern metropolis had sprung up on the empire's remotest frontier, where just mere decades before, there had been only windswept prairie. And now, from the annals of that famous author and detective, the Reverend Elleston Liddell, we present the case he called Blood and Chocolate. But before we begin, hear this.
This fall, the congregation of Young United Church will celebrate our 129th anniversary. A lot has changed since we first opened our doors. This neighborhood, this city, the world. Yet through it all, one thing has remained constant. The whole idea of serving Jesus by feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, and healing the sick has always been very real here. For us, that's what Christian ministry is about. Caring for people who otherwise wouldn't be cared for. Just seeing that the work gets done. For the safety of our congregation and staff, our building is currently closed. But once the crisis is past, why not drop by on a Sunday morning and get to know us a little better? Services are at 11, and the address, 222 Furby Street in Winnipeg. In the meantime, you can find us on Facebook or at youngunitedchurch.com, where you can sign up for our virtual services and daily reflection emails. Young United Church is sponsoring this broadcast in support of our ongoing work in the West Broadway neighborhood, which is currently focused on helping provide food and security for those in need. Contributions of $10 or more made through our secure website or by check mailed to the church office are eligible for a tax receipt. Every dollar helps, so please be generous. Thank you.
And now, Act 1 of Blood and Chocolate, an Elleston Liddell Radio Mystery.
Well, Mr. Stewart, there you have it. With the return Mr. Thompson anticipates, I see no reason you shouldn't be able to double your money, perhaps as quickly as in 30 days.
I must admit, this looks good. Very good indeed.
Then we have a deal?
I believe we do, Miss Willoughby. I believe we do. $5,000, you said.
Excellent. If you'll just sign here, here, and here. Thank you.
Yes, Miss Willoughby?
Harriet, please prepare these documents for Mr. Thompson's signature and this cash for deposit.
Of course, Miss Willoughby.
When can I expect the transaction to be finalized?
Harriet will meet Mr. Thompson's train at 2:15 tomorrow morning as he passes through Winnipeg on his way to an investors' meeting in London. I'll have your notarized copies and your shares delivered on Monday. Will that be convenient?
Quite. With Holy Week approaching, I'll be quite busy with church business. Good to have this settled.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Stewart, a pleasure doing business with you. As Mr. Thompson has often told me, men with your sort of acumen and decisiveness are all too rare these days.
Well, I do like to keep a step ahead.
Of course. Well, I shan't detain you any further. I'm sure a man of your stature has other appointments this afternoon.
Sad but true. Time and business wait for no man, as they say. Good day, Miss Willoughby.
Good day, Mr. Stewart.
Well, easiest one yet, Phoebe.
So full of themselves. Has Mr. Thompson signed?
Just a moment. George S. Thompson. George S. Thompson and George S. Thompson. Done. I wonder where he got the money. Word around the exchange is that Stewart Chocolates is in a bit of trouble.
Since he paid cash, it hardly matters, does it? Besides, exposing that kind of stupidity is a public service. A man like him gives business a bad name.
Here's to finding many more with his sort of acumen and decisiveness.
You little minx. Well, I'd say that's enough work for one day. I think we've earned ourselves a reward. Main dining room at the Royal Alexandra?
Lead on, Miss Willoughby. Lead on.
Pass the butter, would you, James?
Certainly, Elleston. Josie, you've outdone yourself again.
Glad you enjoyed it, Inspector. More coffee?
Oh, don't mind if I do.
James, I must apologize for Elleston. The final week of Lent is not the best time for a minister to have guests.
Oh, I know, Pamela. When the muse strikes, eh, Elleston?
What? Oh, I'm sorry, James. 4 sermons and a book outline.
Think nothing of it, Elleston. You know, it's not you I come to see. It's Josie's cooking I'm here for.
Oh, go on, Inspector.
Be that as it may, James, Elleston's behavior is verging on rude.
You're right, my dear, of course. Well, James, what's the latest from the Winnipeg Constabulary?
Oh, pretty much the same. Petty criminals who are caught due to an excess of space between the ears.
I like that. May I use it?
Oh, be my guest, Elleston. Then there are the usual domestic disputes, a couple of armed robberies. Oh, and there may be a new, rather grander investment racket in the city. The usual questionable stocks with claims of fantastic returns, but the targets seem to be men in your circles, the astute businessman who knows he can't be built. I suspect that's why we've nothing definite so far. No one wants to be the first to admit they're taken.
And you'd like me to make inquiries around the Manitoba Club? Discreetly, of course.
Of course. It exists, if it exists. The operator must be extremely clever.
I'll look into it.
Well, I'll let you get on with it. Pamela?
I'll walk you out, James. Perhaps next time Elleston will be more attentive.
I am always attentive. Good day, James. Oh, and Pamela?
Yes, Elleston?
You won't forget you're going to the Carnegie Library to work on the Woolsey expedition? There'll be no outline if I don't have those details.
Of course, Elleston. Do you want me to... Elleston? We'll see you soon, James.
Of course, my dear. Would I deny Josie, her greatest admirer?
Will that be all, sir?
The Remy Martin and coffee. Louisa?
Oh, no, nothing, thank you.
Oh, very good. Sir, madam.
Thank you, Louisa. The kitchen here never fails to impress. And of course, I could never afford it on what your father pays me.
You're quite welcome, Arnold.
Well then, what is so important that it couldn't wait for our regular assignation?
I've something to tell you. Something I hope will please you.
Indeed. Well, I'm all ears.
You're going to be a father.
I'm what? You can't be serious.
I'm afraid I am. I'm quite excited about it.
I'm sure you are.
But of course, we can't announce it until we're married. I know we've been a bit reluctant to set a date, but now...
Excuse me, Louisa, but has it occurred to you that I might not be interested in having a child?
Well, I know that it's something of a shock, but...
A shock? Louisa, you're not listening. I have no interest whatsoever in having children. None. You must get rid of it.
Get rid of it? I couldn't.
Of course you can, darling. This sort of thing happens all the time. Unfortunate, but there it is.
How could I?
Give it up, or have your doctor solve the problem more directly.
An abortion? I will not.
Then you will have to go away until the blessed event.
You could come with me. Perhaps once you see the child.
Simply not on, darling. Your father would ask why, and I'm sure we wouldn't want him to find out about this little contretemps, now would we? Bad for my career. Devastating for your reputation. No. Only thing is for you to decide to visit some distant relative and wait the thing out.
Thing? It's your child too, Arnold.
Not intentionally, old girl. Know myself, be an horrific father. So why not just toddle off, deal with it, so we can...
Can what, Arnold? Just go back to the way things were?
Was going to say, go our separate ways, actually. You're a pleasing companion, Louisa, and I've no doubt you'll eventually make some chap a decent wife, but with the way your father's business is going, the fact is you're simply not going to be able to afford me. Waiter, check, please.
But you can't. You can't. You can't just abandon me.
Goodbye, Louisa. Oh, and good luck.
Arnold!
Oh, I think the Reverend will find this particularly interesting, Mrs. Liddell. An account of the 1870 Wolseley expedition by Captain George Heish. Very well written, so evocative.
Thank you, Mrs. Strathmore. I'm sure it will be very helpful.
Of course, if you could provide some hint of what Reverend Liddell has in mind for the plot.
I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to divulge any details.
Oh, no secrets, of course. It's just that I could be so much more helpful if you could give me some information about...
Mrs. Strathmore, please.
Of course. Well, here we are. I think you'll find this Carol quite private. I'll check back occasionally, should you require anything further.
That won't be necessary, Mrs. Strathmore. I assure you that...
Oh, it's no trouble at all, Mrs. Liddell.
Thank you. Now I really must get to work. Elleston, your admirers can be quite irritating. Well, let's see what you've brought me, Mrs. Strathmore.
It having been determined to send a military expedition to restore the authority of the Queen at Red River, the sanction of the home government was obtained for the employment of Imperial troops on this service in conjunction with Canadian militia. As we took the first plunge, young Baptiste would wave his paddle in the air with one wild yell of delight, and then, as if ashamed of his momentary weakness, would address himself to the task, and with consummate skill and strength, plunging his paddle now this side, now that, would guide us down amidst the seething cauldron of waters that hissed and boiled around, threatening at every moment to swallow up the little gig. Oh, such moments of wild excitement, brief as they are worth years of tame existence, and make one feel inclined to look with pity on those who have never experienced that thrilling sensation that stirs every fiber in the frame and makes the heart leap with the most intense excitement. Oh, such was our passage down the Winnipeg River.
Oh my, Elleston will be so pleased. Phoebe?
Pamela, darling, is that you?
How can you not be?
In prison? Dead? I do hope you're not too disappointed.
But the case against you was...
Completely circumstantial. It came down to Archibald's word against mine, and I'm a far better actor. I knew nothing of his foul plot till he told me what he'd done. I only fled with him for fear of my life. And so poor Archibald went to the gallows, and I, freed from my beast of a husband, about my business. Happily, neither his lawyer nor the Crown prosecutor saw fit to call you as a witness. This is a private conversation. Do not return before we finish. Do you understand me?
My arm!
Do you understand me?
Yes!
Then you may go.
Was that necessary?
Of course it was. People who don't know their place are a danger to society.
And it's your place to tell them theirs?
Certainly, as it is yours.
I think not.
Oh, come, Pamela. Don't be willfully obtuse. You know we are more alike than you care to admit. Both brilliant women held back by having to live in a man's world.
I am nothing like you. You
do what is necessary to live as I deserve. You simply found a less objectionable solution than my late, unlamented husband.
That is not why I married Ellen.
No, to bask in the glow of his genius, then? Oh, go on wallowing in self-delusion if you must, but I know better. For women like us, men are to be used. Stepping stones, nothing more. Take that pillar of society who was in my office this past week.
Your office?
Investments. Winnipeg, my darling, is filled to bursting with lesser men who will do anything to become the next Ashdown or Nanton. It's better than owning a bank. An imbecile could see the risk of losing everything, but somehow our Mr. Stewart and his ilk never do. An impressive office high in the empire's first skyscraper, a vague promise of huge returns, a fawning compliment from a beautiful woman, et voila!
You truly are a monster, Phoebe.
By whose definition? No matter. In time you'll come to see I'm right. You're far too intelligent not to. In the meantime, you won't mention this little encounter, will you?
Why should I not?
First, we admire each other too much, despite all your protestations.
And the second?
Second, darling, though trite, monster is not an altogether inaccurate description. When the need arises, do remember that.
Oh, there you are, Phoebe. The new list Mr. C provided has some very promising potential clients.
Excellent. Well, I must run. Lovely to see you, Pamela. I've no doubt our paths will cross again. Ta-ta.
Oh, my God.
I don't know that one, Miss Halliburton. What is it?
My sister sent it from London. It's a new piece called Hail Glad Festival Day by a young chap named Vaughan Williams, one to keep an eye on, I think.
Blessed day to be hallowed forever. day wherein Christ arose, breaking the kingdom of death. Well, I think this could work quite well with what I have in mind for Easter Sunday.
I'd hoped you'd like it.
Indeed. I dare say this could become an Easter tradition. I wonder how it will sound on the organ.
I believe I've made my opinion about that quite clear, Reverend Liddell. This church was founded in 1884, and the piano has allowed me to serve the Lord and this congregation since the day we held our very first service.
No one is questioning the enormous contributions you've made to the life and work of McDougall, Mr. Halliburton.
Then why do you and Winston Stewart insist on wasting time and energy fundraising for a pipe organ?
Because, Violet, we and the board believe that an organ will enhance worship and help grow the congregation, which will, in turn, aid us in expanding the work that we do in this neighborhood. The very work you're always insisting is so important.
Spare me your smug pieties, Winston. You both know we could be doing that work now and more with the obscene amount of money you've raised for this misguided project. How much is it now? Over $5,000?
$5,435 by Louisa's latest accounting. That's before signing the contract with Casavan Frere and making the down payment, of course.
Winston, Miss Halliburton, but please.
Well, gentlemen, as the Bible warns, pride goeth before a fall. Do remember that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to prepare for choir practice. Good day.
I'm sorry, Elleston. A threat? Her holier-than-thou attitude just grates.
And yet, her position is something I continue to struggle with. Are we doing the right thing, Winston? Or are we letting our grand vision obscure God's real plan?
I'd be more susceptible to her argument if I believed she really meant it. The truth is she can't play the organ and doesn't want to share her position with a man who does.
She's uneasy about this kind of change. Understandably, I'd say.
Of course she is, but who wouldn't be? But the proper response is not to accuse everyone else of venality, especially you. After all, you're waiving a year's salary to help make this possible.
It's nothing, truly.
It is not nothing, despite your modesty. You're to be commended, not attacked. Between us, her recalcitrance is causing the personnel committee to reconsider her future as music director.
Winston, no. Violet is one of the true saints of McDougall.
I quite agree. She does the committee, played for the church till her fingers bled, or so she never hesitates to remind us. But if she won't stop disparaging anyone who disagrees with her...
I'll talk to her. Surely there must be some middle ground.
Exactly what I hoped you'd say. Thank you, Elleston. Damn that infernal woman!
Violet?
Of course, bloody Violet. Who else would I be talking about? Fix me a drink.
Of course, Father.
I'm the one who rescued the blessed church by convincing Liddell to come. And what thanks do I get? Backstabbing at every turn. But Miss Halliburton thinks... makes me want to vomit.
Your blood pressure, Father.
Sod my blood pressure. Well, Violet, your days in power are finally coming to an end. Once the organ's in place and we've hired a man who can play it, Liddell will back me in the end. His idea, after all. Did I tell you he wants the toccata and fugue in D minor for anniversary in November? Try playing that on the piano, Miss Halliburton.
I'm sure Reverend Liddell will smooth things over. He's very good at that. Can I get you another drink?
Absolutely. That's better. Well, I suppose, despite my warnings, you had lunch with that ass Crittenden.
Yes, Father.
And he left you with the chick again, I'll wager. He's for the sack, Louisa. You know that, don't you? We're going to have to undertake some serious belt tightening if Stewart Chocolates is to regain its profitability. His father and I may have served in the same regiment, but friendship has its limits, especially where the health of the company is concerned.
But Father...
I've made up my mind. 6 months was more than enough time for him to demonstrate both his incompetence and dishonesty. He may have cost me. No matter. He's through.
But Father,
What, Louisa?
I love him, Father. If you sack him, I'll have no way to convince him.
Convince him? What have you done, Louisa? You haven't. You little trollop. How could you do this to me? Do you realize the scandal this will cause if this becomes public?
I'm sorry, Father. I'll go away until...
And you expect me to pay so Crittenden can blackmail me with his bastard wealth after he's already... Oh no, my girl. You'll get rid of it. Immediately.
But Father, I can't. I can't.
Then Smithson will have your bags placed in the street where you can pursue a career more suited to your obvious proclivities.
You. This is your fault. Begging me to stay here and run your household after Mother died. Why did I listen? You made me a spinster. It was so lonely. You didn't care. You never cared about anything but yourself and your precious chocolates. Now you've ruined both. No, I hate you.
Damn. Damn.
Mrs. Plachenko, I asked not to be... Oh, Pamela, it's you.
Elleston, Phoebe is here.
Phoebe?
Phoebe Johnston, here in Winnipeg.
Is she indeed? I rather thought she'd leave Canada.
You knew?
About the travesty of her acquittal? Yes, it was in the Alberta papers.
And you didn't think it important enough to mention?
I can see that was a mistake.
Elleston, she's dangerous. She will use anything, anyone to get what she wants. You know that.
I know how deeply her betrayal affected you. I'm truly sorry, dear.
It's just that she is so, oh, never mind.
So you spoke to her?
Listen to her lecture would be the more accurate. At the library.
Did she mention what she's doing in Winnipeg?
Working for an investment firm in the Union Bank Tower. Less than gilt-edged stocks, I gather.
Hardly surprising, given her spectacular lack of morals. I wonder.
What?
Oh, you'll remember what James was saying over breakfast.
Oh, yes. You know, she mentioned the name Stewart. You don't suppose Winston is one of the men who's been built?
Well, that would be... What is it now, Mrs. Plachenko?
I'm sorry, Reverend Liddell. It's Louisa Stewart. She say it's emergency.
Oh, very well. Show her in.
Oh, Pamela, I didn't know.
That's quite all right, Louisa. I was just leaving.
No, please stay. Oh, God.
Here, come, sit on the sofa. Now, what seems to be the problem?
Father has thrown me out.
What? Why?
I am with child.
Oh, Louisa, I'm so sorry.
I take it the father is unwilling to accept his responsibility.
Both Arnold and Father have demanded I relieve myself of this burden. Damned inconvenient, you see.
God forgive them. They're asking you to commit a mortal sin. You know that, don't you, Miss Stewart?
What am I to do, Reverend Liddell? I've no income of my own, no way to support myself, and now no prospect of marriage. Damaged goods, after all.
Don't say that, Louisa. There are good men who would understand.
Easy for you to say. I'm sorry. Reverend Liddell, I couldn't do that. I wanted to go away until then Father wouldn't. So I decided to take what I needed from the organ fund.
Louisa!
I'd pay it back, no matter how long it took. But
Yes, Miss Stewart?
the money is gone, Reverend Liddell. There's $5,000 missing.
Good heavens.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. I recorded this week's gifts and I added them to the deposit bag just before the last board meeting. That envelope is there. The rest are empty.
And in addition to you and I, who has access to the vault?
Only Violet and my father, and Mrs. Plachenko, of course.
I think we may safely rule out Mrs. Plachenko. We'd better call the police.
Must you, Reverend Liddell? Could you not look into it first? Perhaps there's another explanation. If we could recover the funds without the church being involved in a scandal.
$5,000 is a great deal of money, Miss Stewart. And as you've already admitted to contemplating robbery, one might find your request somewhat self-serving.
But I didn't mean...
Perhaps not. But you have put yourself in a rather compromised position.
Elleston?
Oh, very well. I shall make some brief inquiries. But unless the funds are located almost immediately, I will involve the police. I must.
Thank you, Reverend Liddell.
Mr. Stewart is on the telephone, Reverend Liddell.
Oh, good. Hello, Winston. Good of you to call me back so quickly.
I'm just between meetings. So what can I do for you?
It's about the organ fund. Louisa tells me most of it appears to be missing.
Missing? But how? She wouldn't.
Wouldn't what?
Louisa and I had a bit of a row earlier.
So I understand.
What did she tell you?
That you were going to disown her if she didn't end her pregnancy.
What? I did no such thing. Of course I'm bitterly disappointed in her, but throw her out? Pure female hysteria, Elleston. She's always been difficult. It's why she'll never attract a proper husband. Between us, I'm not even sure she is pregnant.
I beg your pardon?
It's happened before. A fortune hunter she met on vacation in France took a payoff to stop seeing her, which tells you everything you need to know about him. She refused to believe it, completely lost control, finally claimed they'd had relations and she was with child. Absolutely balderdash, of course. Doctor in Paris confirmed she was still a virgin.
I see. I presume you know who the man is?
Arnold Crittenden, my plant manager. Sacked the scoundrel this morning, and I had a couple of the lads give him a good hiding as well. Louisa may be exaggerating about the child, but she definitely was seeing him.
That is unfortunate. With regard to the missing organ money, however, I'm inclined to believe her when she says she denies responsibility.
Well, if not Louisa, who then? Surely you don't think I have something to do with this? When it comes to the organ, I'm your staunchest supporter. You know that.
I'm not accusing anyone, Winston. It may have nothing to do with the organ at all. Lord knows there's enough desperation in our neighborhood to drive someone to theft.
And since the vault is often open during the day, that will have to change, of course. Damn it, Elleston. What are we going to do?
Find the money, Winston. What else? Why don't you meet me at the church? I'll invite Inspector O'Connell and we can start a discreet inquiry. How does that sound? Say 2 o'clock?
Louisa, how long have you...
You'll be sorry, Father. I promise you.
Winston, are you all right?
Yes, certainly. Yes, I'm fine. I'll be there, Elleston. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, just enough time to finish sermon number 3. Josie!
Yes, Reverend?
Get Inspector O'Connell on the telephone, if you please. Tell him I'd like to see him in my office at McDougall, 2 o'clock.
Certainly, sir.
Oh, and has Mrs. Liddell arrived yet?
No, she called and said she was going to talk to an acquaintance about investments, I think she said.
She wouldn't. When did she call, Josie?
About half an hour ago.
Then there's still time. Josie, tell Inspector to meet me at the Union Bank Tower instead, as soon as he can get there. And have Yershi bring the car around.
Yes, sir.
Pamela, what are you thinking?
Tenth floor, ma'am. Your office is to the right.
Thank you. A good thing Phoebe is so memorable. 10:07, 10:08, 10:09. G.S. Thompson and Associates. All right, Pamela. Deep breath.
Yes, madam. May I be of assistance?
Yes, I'd like to speak to...
Harriet, did I hear... Pamela, to what do we owe the pleasure?
Hello, Phoebe.
Oh, no, Harriet, it's quite all right. Pamela and I are old friends. Are we not, Pamela?
I've come to talk to you about one of your clients, Phoebe.
Have you indeed? Quel dommage. I was rather hoping for a luncheon invitation. Another chance to share intimate secrets like our tete-a-tete in the hot springs at Banff. Ah, well. Harriet, I believe there's nothing more we need do here. You may close the office. I'll meet you at the train station as soon as Pamela and I have had our little chat.
Very good, Miss Willoughby.
Going somewhere, Phoebe?
An astute businesswoman, darling, knows when a window of opportunity is closing. Come in. All right, Pamela, for whom do you feel the need to act the barrister?
You referred to him at the library. Winston Stewart.
Oh, yes, the so self-important candy maker. Hardly the sort to be one of your Elleston's intimates, I'd have thought.
He's chair of the church board. The money he invested...
Came from the church coffers? Oh, Pamela, not very Christian, I must say.
Oh, do shut up, Phoebe. I want the money returned. From what I understand, you'll hardly miss it.
And if I don't? After all, the transaction was not illegal and entirely uncoerced.
Were Elleston and I to insist, I think the police could be persuaded to...
Come out, Miss Willoughby. I want to talk to you.
My God, it's Winston.
Where are you, you lying cow? I want my money back.
Stay here, darling.
But Phoebe...
Shh, not a sound. Be ready to lock the door when I come back. Mr. Stewart, is it not? How can I be of assistance?
Thought you and that bastard could put one over on me, did you? Well, think again, my girl. I'm on to you and your...
Oh, come, Mr. Stewart. There's no need for violence. Surely we can discuss this like rational adults.
Oh, no, you don't. Get back. No more games, Miss Willoughby, or whatever your real name is. Get me my money, or I swear I'll shoot you dead.
I am sorry you feel that way, Mr. Stewart. The money is in the vault in my office.
Then get it.
Very well. Quick, Pamela, lock it.
Why are you thieving?
Ah!
Phoebe!
It's nothing. Into the vault.
Damn you.
Pull Phoebe!
Come out of there.
Here, let me look at
My
that arm.
money. I must.
What in heaven's
have
name
my
were you
money.
thinking? You could have been killed.
So lovely to know you care, darling.
Without that money,
But the fact is, we both could have been killed. It was
my
worth
name
the
will be
risk.
ruined. I'll lose my
There.
business.
The bleeding is slowing, I think.
Absolutely washed
Well,
up.
what do we do now?
That money
We're
back.
safe enough. Just wait him out, I suppose. Either he'll leave or more likely pass out. He's quite drunk. There. Now just a few more minutes to be sure and... Ah!
Ah! What? Do you hear anything?
Nothing.
You don't suppose he...
There's only one way to find out, my love. Come along.
Do you see anything?
No. Must be in the outer office.
Don't.
Must.
What is it? Oh. Oh, Winston.
Dead, I presume.
Quite. Oh, so much blood.
Here, sit down, darling. I suppose I'd better call the police.
No need, Mrs. Johnston. The police are here.
Oh, Elleston.
We will return to Blood and Chocolate after a brief intermission. But first, hear this.
Once again, a reminder that Young United Church is sponsoring this broadcast in support of our ongoing work in the West Broadway neighborhood, which is currently focused on helping provide food and security for those in need. Contributions of $10 or more are made through our secure website, youngunitedchurch.com, or by check mailed to the church office at 100 222 Furby, are eligible for a tax receipt. So please be generous.
Welcome back. Lent seems to be ending on a rather eventful note, does it not? A love affair gone wrong, the appearance of an old nemesis, perhaps a theft, and now an ugly death. A number of possible crimes, a collection of possible motives. Who might be involved? The jilted lover? The angry choir director? The fired manager? Oh, then of course there's the unscrupulous businesswoman, and even a corpse. It could be any of them, couldn't it? And now, Act 2 of Blood and Chocolate, an Elleston Liddell radio mystery.
Elleston.
Are you all right, Pamela?
Yes. Thoroughly frightened, but yes.
Thank the good Lord.
And who might you be, miss?
Phoebe Willoughby, Mr. Thompson's business manager, as Mrs. Liddell can attest.
When we last met, James, Miss Willoughby had just become a widow under rather peculiar circumstances.
This is Phoebe Johnston, from your honeymoon, the one charged with murdering your husband.
And acquitted, my dear Inspector, as the Reverend very well knows. I had nothing to do with this. Tell him, Pamela.
It's true, James. I was here on another matter when Winston broke in and started shooting. Phoebe saved my life, Elleston.
And for that, you have my sincerest gratitude. Tell me, did he say anything that might explain his behavior?
Well, he was quite drunk, as I'm sure you'll still be able to smell. He'd recently invested some funds with our company, Inspector, and had evidently had a change of heart.
Perhaps he examined his purchases more closely?
Well, we'll never know now, will we, Reverend Liddell?
That remains to be seen, Miss Willoughby.
Elleston, look here.
What is it, James?
There's a note in his pocket. It appears Mr. Stewart may have taken his own life.
But why?
May I see the letter, James? Oh, don't worry. I'll be careful about finger marks. To whom it may concern, I have stolen money from my church in a fruitless attempt to save my family business and reputation. I find I lack the courage to face my ruin like a gentleman. I am sorry.
Oh, poor Winston.
Wilson, call the coroner. No one in or out till he gets here. And mind, don't touch anything, especially the gun.
Sir.
Seems fairly cut and dried, but not doing it by the book can come back to bite you in my experience.
Well, I heartily concur. Pamela, are you sure you're all right? Can I get you something?
No, Elleston. I'm fine, truly.
Well, I'm not. Might I remind you, Reverend Liddell, that I was shot while saving Pamela's life?
My apologies, Miss Willoughby. I'll have a doctor summoned at once.
Thank you. Inspector, there's a ladies' room down the hall. I think I should like to lie down while we wait for the coroner.
Of course. Wilson?
I'd station a guard outside, James. Phoebe was about to catch a train when I arrived.
Pamela, after all we've been through together.
Precisely.
Thank you for laying the fire, Josie. You can take care of the glasses in the morning. Good night.
Good night, sir. Mrs. Liddell.
Good night, Josie. Hiring her is the smartest thing we've ever done as a couple, don't you think?
I think you're trying to change the subject. I still can't believe you went to see Phoebe by yourself. Even if Winston hadn't barged in, she's a murderess, Pamela, regardless of what the court said. She could have... It terrifies me just to think of it.
You're overreacting, darling. It's odd, but I'm certain I'm the last person Phoebe would ever harm, as she proved with poor Winston. She not only saved me, Elleston, she risked her life to do it. I was never in any danger from her. In fact, we'd be dearest friends if it weren't for...
Her homicidal tendencies?
And her unshakable belief in her innate superiority and her complete rejection of moral behavior.
And yet,
if we hadn't been interrupted, she would have given me the money. I'm certain of it.
perhaps. Though it would do your poor husband's heart good if you were to consult him before you decide to put yourself in a similar situation.
I'm sorry, Elleston. Have you started Winston's eulogy?
A bit fraught if circumstances are as they appear.
If? What are you thinking, Elleston?
It's the note. Why bother threatening Phoebe if he'd already decided to end it? No, I think he really intended to force Phoebe to return the money.
Then our escape led him to change his mind?
Possible. But then where is the evidence that he wrote the note while the two of you were in the vault? Phoebe's stationery is nothing like the paper of the note.
So you think the letter may have been placed in Winston's pocket? But why?
To hide another crime?
Another? But what crime?
I don't know. But suppose for a moment the money Winston invested with Phoebe didn't come from the church.
Oh. Shall we share your suspicions with James?
Yes, but I'll ask him not to take action right away. If there is another thief, I'd like them to believe that they'd gotten away with it for a while we make some additional inquiries. He'll agree to that, I think, because there's another problem.
Which is? Wait. To place the note, a person would have to have known, or at least suspected, that Winston was contemplating suicide.
And be following him, waiting for it to happen, which seems unlikely unless...
Unless it wasn't a suicide at all. Oh, Elleston.
More tea, Violet?
Yes, thank you. So, what will you do now?
I'm not sure. The situation at the factory is almost as dire as Arnold suggested, but with proper management, I think it can be turned around. I can't imagine what Father was thinking. At least he didn't have a chance to change his will before.
Indeed, but however, I was speaking about the child.
Oh, well, now that Father is... Arnold has decided he was perhaps too hasty in breaking off our relationship, that the prospect of a child has led him to reconsider, or so he claims.
My dear girl, surely you aren't considering marrying that there aren't words in polite society.
I know it's not ideal.
Huh.
But if it means life, and a respectable life for my daughter or son.
That is a huge sacrifice, Louisa.
I know, but Arnold didn't force me into bed with him. Now at least one of us has to be responsible.
Oh, Reverend Liddell, could we have a moment?
Good afternoon, ladies. Might we speak later? I've had an idea for my Maundy Thursday sermon, and I just need to get it down.
I'm sure it will keep, Reverend Liddell, if you please.
You're right, of course. My apologies. What can I do for you?
Well, we were wondering where the investigation stands. Louisa needs to get on with her life.
The police are doing all they can, but there are questions that remain unanswered. In particular, there is some doubt about the provenance of the note.
Provenance? You mean Father may not have written it? But that could mean...
that our Reverend thinks the organ money may not have been lost to bad investments, that it may still be recoverable. Is this some desperate ruse to save your precious organ? Balderdash.
Balderdash it may turn out to be, but given the lack of evidence one way or the other, the inspector and I think it worth exploring further. For instance, I know you've had a brief opportunity to examine Stuart Chocolate's accounts, Miss Stewart. Have you found anything that might suggest the money could have come from the company?
I would never have believed Father capable of such a thing. But there have been certainly large losses for which we've yet to establish a satisfactory explanation. For his private accounts, I've struggled to keep up. He was a notoriously poor record keeper.
I see. And you, Miss Halliburton, is there anything you might add? Perhaps something the police didn't ask that could now be pertinent?
Are you accusing me of lying, Reverend Liddell?
No, why would I do that? No. I merely suggest that you spend more time in the church than anyone save Mrs. Plachenko. I've seen for myself that the vault is often left open during the day. In retrospect, can you recall seeing anyone who struck you as out of place?
I don't think... Oh, wait. There was one. A man from the neighborhood, I think. Mrs. Pachenko was at lunch. He asked me for a copy of the previous week's evening bulletin. I remember that struck me as odd.
Do you recall what he looked like?
Short, no more than 5 feet. Workman's clothes, scraggly beard. Oh, and his front teeth were missing.
So you would recognize him should you see him again?
Oh, definitely.
Well, thank you, Miss Halliburton. I'll pass along the description to the inspector.
Now, see here, I still think all this speculation is a complete waste of time. I know you are aware of Louisa's condition. In my view, the evidence is clear. For her sake, this needs to be sorted and the case closed.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Well, if there's nothing further, with your permission, I'll return to my sermon. Good day, ladies.
Be sure to thank your Elleston for convincing the inspector to release me, Pamela. I promise to behave.
Since it's on my word you're free, Phoebe, you had better. Now, who wants to meet you and why?
Man named Crittenden. He's worked for me on occasion. It was actually he who put me in touch with the late Mr. Stewart. Oh, thank you, waiter. Your very good health, darling. Your husband's wallet is allowing your superior taste to shine.
You're welcome. Well?
He didn't say precisely, but knowing him, I expect he's looking for money. Ah, there he is.
Hello, Phoebe. Miss,
Pamela Liddell.
Charmed.
So, what's happened, Arnold? Behind on your gambling debts again? You look frightful.
Nothing quite so dramatic, old girl. I simply walked into a door jam.
No, I'm sure. Well then, what's so urgent you had to intrude on our luncheon?
Rather delicate matter. If I might speak to you in private. My apologies, Mrs. Liddell.
Oh, don't worry. No secrets between Pamela and I, are there, darling?
Phoebe?
Well, Phoebe, I find I need to leave Winnipeg for a time. Family emergency, you see, but, well, it's caught me a bit short. Based on our business relationship, I was wondering you might advance me the fare.
And I was wondering if your emergency might have something to do with being sacked?
What? Who told you that?
What does it matter, Mr. Crittenden, since your reaction tells us it's true? It does make one wonder what else you might be lying about.
Now, see here.
Oh, hush, Arnold. You were sacked from Stewart Chocolates for various misdeeds, and the door jam was actually a pair of fists. So what is it, really?
Well, it's your fault, actually. Some fellows around the exchange hold me responsible for their losses with Thompson. Want me to make good because coming to you
would make them look like the fools they are. What did I tell you, Pamela?
Yes, quite. The sum involved is rather more than Louisa has been able to arrange.
Louisa? Then you're the father, you contemptible swine.
You wrong me, madam. I fully intend to assume my patriarchal duties.
Now that Louisa has inherited.
Of course. But tell me, Arnold, you've already been paid for your work, handsomely, I might add. Why should I consider giving you another penny, simply to save you from a few more broken bones?
If I were to put it about that George S. Thompson is, in fact, a fiction, well, then your dealings go from offering risky investments to a matter of fraud.
It is clear, Mr. Crittenden, that you have not thought this through. Should what you've just said have any merit and become public, assuming you avoided jail, you could have no future in Winnipeg. None whatsoever.
Which suggests your real plan is to marry Louisa, liquidate Stewart Chocolates, and then abandon her again. So what you actually need is funds to keep yourself alive long enough to collect. Well, Arnold, I choose not to let that happen. Good day.
I warn you, Phoebe. I can make your...
Perhaps you misunderstood. If you do not remove yourself from my sight this instant, I will see to it that you wish you had never been born.
Good heavens, Phoebe. If looks could kill, we should be well on our way to meet our maker.
I admit surprise, completely unsuited to playing the heavy.
Perhaps, but that man reeks of desperation, and desperate men.
Indeed. You don't suppose...
What?
Come along, my darling. I think it past time to compare notes with your Elleston.
I can't keep men on this any longer, Elleston. It's suicide. I have no choice.
No, James. Winston was murdered. I'm almost sure of it.
Then give me a suspect. I'm sympathetic, but my officers found no evidence of anyone else entering the office after Stewart. No one heard the shots. No one remembers seeing anyone suspicious. As it stands, there is no case.
I believe Pamela and I may have something to add, Inspector.
Indeed, Miss Willoughby. And what might that be?
Phoebe and I have just had the most extraordinary interview.
With whom, pray?
Arnold Crittenden.
Pamela.
And how exactly is that pertinent? The man's no doubt dishonest and a complete cad, but are you suggesting?
He as much as told us he's only returning to Louisa to get control of the company.
Which could only happen if Winston were out of the way. Yes.
As I told Pamela, Inspector, I'd have never expected outright violence from him. But after seeing him this afternoon, I'd say there's a distinct possibility he's our man.
But you've no new evidence.
Other than he's desperate for money, no.
Pamela, you and Miss Willoughby were the only other persons in the office. Now, I know you've given your statements, but is there anything else you can tell us, no matter how unimportant it might seem? Something you saw or heard?
You've always insisted on facts, Elleston, but call it woman's intuition if you will. But there was something wrong with the picture when we emerged from the vault. We both felt it immediately.
Go on.
I think Pamela can confirm that Stewart became completely quiet for some time before we heard the last shot.
That's true, Elleston, yes. And now that I think of it, I'm sure I heard something strike the floor immediately after the silence fell.
You're suggesting that Winston lost consciousness before the fatal shot was fired, which means whoever planted the note
could have shot Winston, replaced the gun,
slipped out before you and the inspector arrived, and then escaped in the ensuing brouhaha.
It's more plausible than anything else we've come up with, but there's still no way to prove it. The blackguard's father would crucify me if I were to arrest him on this.
Surely you can find some grounds to hold him. He threatened me. Pamela's a witness. Given the opportunity, I assure you I could make him sing like a canary.
And I can assure you, Miss Willoughby, you will never see the inside of my interview room, unless it's as a suspect. However, if you and Miss Liddell will press charges, I can at least bring him in.
Yes, Josie, what is it?
A call for the inspector, Reverend.
Oh, thank you. You can take it in here, James.
O'Connell. Yes, Wilson, what is it? Right. Well, Miss Willoughby, it seems you are right about Crittenden.
What is it, James?
Stewart's housekeeper called the station. Says Crittenden showed up, practically dragged Miss Stewart into his car and roared off.
Did he say where they were going?
It can only be one place. Pamela.
Don't you dare even think it, Elleston. We'll not be left behind.
Come along, then. There's no time to lose.
Where are they, Davis?
Mr. Crittenden said they had to check something in the office. Miss Stewart said it was all right.
No one here, James. Where does that other door lead to, Mr. Davis?
Out into the factory, sir.
All right. Ladies, I'm going to have to ask you to stay here. Sing out if they come back past you.
Inspector, surely we...
Pamela, please. The danger is simply too great.
And yet you... Oh, very well.
Thank you, darling. James?
Certainly. We'll just stay here and let the men deal with the problem we solved, won't we, Phoebe? Phoebe? Oh, drat.
Arnold, I've given you enough money to pay off all your creditors. Please, take me home now. I'm feeling quite nauseated.
Just have to wait until the police are away from the door, darling. Then we can leave and everything will be all right.
Why should you be worried about the police, Arnold? It's my factory now, and we've done nothing wrong. You will pay off your debts, and then we'll be married.
Of course, my love, of course. Sure, it's all a misunderstanding, but, you know...
But what, Arnold? What aren't you telling me?
Nothing, my love, nothing.
James, they're over here.
All right, Crittenden, you'll have to come with us.
Whatever for, Inspector?
We simply want to talk to you, Mr. Crittenden.
Do you? Rather think the conversation would be a dreadful bore, old man.
What's this about, Reverend Liddell? What's Arnold done?
I'm afraid it concerns your father's death, Miss Stewart.
But Father killed himself, Arnold?
Enough!
Arnold, you're hurting me!
Necessary, I'm afraid, old girl. Now, gentlemen, don't want to see Louisa injured, do you? Just step aside and let us pass.
Arnold? You killed Father? No! No!
Water under the bridge, old girl. Now move, gentlemen, or I'll have to...
Or you'll what, Arnold?
Quick, catch her!
Damn it, she's bleeding.
The baby. Pamela, call for an ambulance. Oh Lord, in your infinite mercy, turn your face toward this woman and child.
Reverend Liddell? Don't let him. Oh.
Hush, girl. He'll do nothing more to harm you. Did I kill him, Inspector?
No, Miss Willoughby, he'll survive, at least until he has.
Hail that festival day, blessed day to be hallowed forever, day wherein Christ arose, breaking the kingdom of death.
He is risen.
He is risen indeed.
Thanks be to God. Now go out into the world, trusting that death has lost its sting, that it is no longer the final answer, but an invitation to new and resurrected life.
Hallelujah!
Amen.
Thank you for that, Miss Halliburton. The Vaughan Williams worked brilliantly, just as you predicted.
You're most welcome, Reverend Liddell. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll be off. Louisa is coming for Easter dinner, and I've still preparations to make.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to look in on her in the past few days. How is she faring?
Oh, physically, she's fully recovered. But the shock of losing the baby and Arnold's betrayal, it will take time.
Indeed. Please tell her she's in our prayers, and then I'll drop by early in the week.
Certainly.
Miss Halliburton, there is one more thing, if you don't mind. Please sit down.
Yes, Reverend Liddell, what is it?
It concerns the organ fund. I was wondering how you intend to return the money.
Return the... How dare you?
Oh, come. I know it was you. And I know the money will reappear once the order to Cassavant Frere is cancelled for lack of payment.
I can't play it. I tried for nearly a year. 3 manuals, pedal board. I just can't make my hands and feet do what I want them to.
And you thought that if the funds disappeared, momentum for the project would dissipate. Then, when Winston appeared to have confessed...
I'm sorry. The money is in a compartment under your pulpit. I really did see the fellow with the missing teeth. Will you report me to the police?
Report what? In a moment of absent-mindedness, the money was misplaced. What was lost is now found, and the project can proceed.
So, I've failed. With the new instrument will come a new music director, and I will be put out to pasture.
And lose your institutional memory? No, no. I don't see retirement in your future at all. Violet, if I may.
But if I can't play the organ...
Oh, I have an entirely different position in mind. With Winston's unfortunate demise, McDougall is in need of a chair of the Board of Stewards.
But I'm a woman.
Given your knowledge and capability, I fail to see why that should be an impediment. An argument I shall make as forcefully as necessary at our next board meeting, unless you feel unable to rise to the challenge.
Of course I'm able. I simply never expected to have the opportunity.
We live in a world of progress, Violet. The old shibboleths about a woman's innate inferiority are the most pernicious sort of rubbish. It's time they were confronted and discarded. Wouldn't you agree?
I will not let you down, Reverend Liddell.
Of that, I have no doubt. Well then, in the spirit of this joyous day, perhaps it's time to resurrect the missing organ fund. Shall we?
There she is.
Well, go along and say your goodbyes. I'll wait here.
Thank you, Elleston. Phoebe! Oh, Phoebe!
Darling, how lovely to see you.
After what we've been through, I couldn't very well let you go without a proper goodbye. Now could I?
I should hope not.
So what's next for the infamous Phoebe Willoughby?
Well, sadly, darling, I shan't be coming back to Winnipeg anytime soon. Inspector O'Connell was grateful for our part in solving the case, but he made it quite clear that with Arnold's conviction, my immediate departure is the only thing that will forestall charges.
Where will you go?
Harriet's waiting for me in Chicago with what remains of our ill-gotten gains. After that, well, who knows? So many gullible men, so little time.
Phoebe! You are the most infuriating, incorrigible...
Don't forget intriguing! But that's what you love about me, isn't it, darling? Oh, Pamela, come away with me. Just think of the adventures we could have together.
I can assure you Elleston provides me with all the adventure I could ever want. Besides, I do truly love him. You know that.
I do. But as the poet said, without dreaming, what's a world for?
Goodbye, Phoebe.
Goodbye, darling. No. Simply, au revoir.
All right, then. Au revoir.
You'll miss her.
Terribly, for a while. As a friend, she's best experienced in small doses.
But still a friend.
Yes, Elleston. Is that awful of me?
Why? I've always believed the Lord sends us the people we need. He clearly sees something in Phoebe, despite her worldly misdeeds. It seems to me you both grow when you're together, in ways that living in a man's world too often denies women. You soften her worst impulses. She brings out the hidden steel in you.
Unsettling, but apt, darling. Now, if you could only arrange a path to that growth that didn't involve risking life and limb.
I'll be sure to bring it up the next time James, I'm disappointed in you. Didn't trust us to put Phoebe on the train?
It's not you I don't trust, Elleston. Well, that's that then. I'll just head back to the station house.
It's the end of a successful case, James. Surely we've earned the right to celebrate a little.
Oh, well, I suppose you're right.
Of course she is. Besides, if Josie ever found out we'd passed up a chance for her to bask in your blarney, we would never hear the end of it. Come along.
Tonight, Interesting Theater has brought you Blood and Chocolate, an Elleston Liddell radio mystery by Tim Higgins. Featured in the cast were Barbara Best, Chris Castlake, Peggy DeGagne, Tanis Hewitt, Liz Higgins, Tim Higgins, Don Larson, Soloris Miller, Jock Warrener, Bob Wilkes, and Susan Wilkes, with Glenn Hurst as the announcer. Sound effects and Foley were provided by Tim Stevenson and Peggy DeGagne. Music was arranged and performed by Dorcas Windsor and Rick Selwood. Blood and Chocolate was directed by Tim Higgins. This has been an Interesting Theater radio production.